Hello and welcome to Thursday Night Talk. This is a show where we discuss the week in Humboldt, the local issues, and the local personalities with local personalities. I'm Talvi and I'll be your host for the next hour, your local host in particular. Not that we have unlocal hosts ever, but usually it's just me, but who knows what one day will bring. Where do you get your fresh fruits and vegetables? Take a moment and think about it. Because you probably eat fruits and veggies, especially if you live in Humboldt. Why else would you have come here? Even if you were born here, you probably grew up around this farm-centric community. If you answered, from local farmers, of course, farmers markets, maybe you have a farm share. Well, guess what? You're probably getting your produce from one of the guests on our show or from somebody who's helping other farmers get their produce and goods and livestock out there. Joining us tonight, we've got Portia Bramble, Executive Director of the North Coast Growers Association, Eddie Tanner from Deepseeded Farm, and Melanie Cunnigham from Shakefork Community Farms. Welcome to everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having us.
Of course. It's our pleasure having you. If anybody has any questions for our guests, please text them to 707-498-4146. That's text them to 707-498-4146. We're not having anybody live on the air because in the past that proved messy. So you can just send your questions via text 707-498-4146. A lot of people in Humboldt are most people in Humboldt are very well aware that this is an agricultural heavy community. There's farmers, I guess raising livestock is also farming, especially with, we've got the rodeo in town, currently in Rio Dell. There's some livestock competitions coming up. We have, the Foggy Bottom Boys with their farm and now they're making ice cream. I don't know. There's all sorts of things happening.
So many things.
Yes, so many things. Pretty much anything you can dream of, you can get here in Humboldt. Pretty much absolutely anything, which is amazing. It's part of the farming community is all farmers. Though I kind of want to do a little bit of an early round robin and just have everybody kind of qualify. What's your back story a little bit, what got you into farming, or being around farmers or aiding farmers, what's the work you do and why do you do it? Let's go ahead and start with Eddie.
Yeah, well, I did not grow up in a farming family. I actually haven't had any family connection to farming for over 6 generations. So for me, it was kind of a young adulthood kind of realization that just fresh food tasted really good. Started eating food from friends' gardens and then helping them in their gardens, and just really caught the bug and realized that, yeah, I was a happier, healthy person, both eating fresh food and also spending time cultivating that food. Um, so that's really where I got started. And then, from that interest, I just sort of ran with it, and had a really formative experience doing an apprenticeship on a farm in Covelo, California, which is actually the oldest, longest running CSA farm in California. Shakefork Farm, Live Power Community Farm in Covelo. Um, and then just kind of kept running with it. Worked for other farmers, had some stints running some community farms along with some other great people, and then eventually realized that I could make a living doing it, and start a small business. Yeah. So what was that? That was in 2008 that I started Deep Seeded Farm. So we are in our 17th harvest season.
Well, congratulations on that, for sure.
Thanks.
Melanie.
Yes. We started our farm in 2008 as well, so that must have been a good year for starting a farm. I came to Humboldt County to learn how to farm in about 21 years ago now, and I was driven. I spent some years in San Francisco landscaping and backyard gardens and designing gardens, and I wanted something more. I also was driven by a desire to root myself, to deepen my connection to a community, to understand on a deeper level just how things worked, how to grow things. I also grew up in cities, and well, I grew up in Tokyo, so the biggest city in the world apparently. And something about living overseas, you're never quite belonging to a place. So much of my young adulthood was about finding that place where I could belong. And every step of the way, I just got, like Eddie said, caught the bug and got more and more uh, entranced by what farming was. I had no idea. I was very driven to it by very romantic reasons, but the reality of it also caught me. So it's been a long journey of learning what this, all the tools of the trade and growing in my skill set and learning how to run a business. And um,
Which I
I,
definitely want to get back to the methods everyone uses while farming, especially
mhm.
because I don't want to ruin the surprise of the cool method that you use while farming, but we'll save that for a moment. I want to give Portia a chance just to introduce herself to everybody, and then we'll definitely get back to that particular topic because it's
Hmm.
pretty cool and old school innovative in a way. So Portia.
Yeah, I'm Portia Bramble. I'm the executive director for North Coast Growers Association. So we operate Humboldt County's farmers markets. We also operate the local Harvest Hub, which is a food hub. And we do a lot of other important services in the community to support our local farmers. And I also started in my capacity as director for NCGA in 2008. So I've been working alongside these
It was
fine
quite
farmers.
That was a
Yeah, it
good
was a
year.
busy year. Yeah, so we kind of grew up in this organization together, and along with over 100 other local farmers that we work with. So it's a really deeply rooted community here in Humboldt County with a rich history. I grew up in Berkeley, California, so my interests started in kind of a foodie centric, culture in Berkeley. And I was very interested in kind of the economics of trade and how food moves through the economies of California and beyond. And my kind of heart and passion was driven mostly by like a social and environmental justice angle, and that's how I found myself interested in this role to see what could we do in terms of support to grow the local food industry here and to increase the number of farmers and increase our food security and viability of agriculture in a community that used to be so dependent on agriculture. Farming and ranching runs so deep in the history of Humboldt County, but we were seeing the shifts of the early economic crises and then later the significant changes in the local economy due to the disruptions and collapse in the cannabis industry. So we saw a lot of economic impacts from that. And I really wanted to make sure that we had as many options in place to preserve local food production and make sure that we could continue to feed our communities and continue to see the vibrant abundance of local food that we've had at our markets for a very long time now.
So everyone mentioned 2008, which is interesting because I mean, that was an economic disaster for the United States, and Humboldt almost had this bubble because of the agricultural community. Though, just on a note, Eddie, you did a competition called Economic Fuel, and
Mm-hmm.
I believe they gave you, go figure, some seed funding uh, to get you started, which is impressive. I remember
Mm-hmm.
there's been several iterations of that, and I think they're working on a new one. Can you just explain
That's
what that
exciting.
process was? Because people might be interested in maybe applying for the next one that's coming up. I'm not sure what they're going to call it, but something.
Sure, yeah, it was like a local, less campy version of Shark Tank. Funded by local donors, primarily Rob Arkley, and a great idea to stimulate small business or not small business. Some of them have grown larger, but just, innovation and entrepreneurship in the local community. So yeah, that did provide some seed funding for my farm. I joke that, the money that I won from that competition really just all went to getting water flowing at my farm. Um, so, but that's huge, having flowing water on a farm like mine is key. So that really was a springboard to getting my business going. And the whole process of competing in a business plan competition just really sets you up well. The business classes that you take and the process of writing a business plan, doing your market research, just going through all those steps and thinking about all your processes and all the associated costs, and putting it on paper. It's just a very good exercise for anybody thinking about small business, not just agriculture. Um, and so, yeah, not to get too sidetracked, but that's something that, a program that Portia and I are both involved in right now is a beginning farmer training program that includes a strong business development portion.
It's super huge for people to understand how much goes into farming or any business really, other than just, here's a carrot. It's like it takes a
Hmm.
lot to get that one single carrot out there, which leads me into the interesting methods, especially that Melanie you use over at Shakefork Farms, which
Hmm.
involve giant beasts. So if you want to,
Harnessing the power of giant beasts. Yes. Yeah, we are a mixed power farm. So, there's a lot of human power on our farm, but we do use oxen to work the fields in the vegetable garden for shaping beds and cultivation and marking beds for planting and harvesting potatoes, and then in the pasture for hauling, or not hauling, but pulling and moving around animal shelters and animal feed and keeping all of the things that accompany livestock moving on a daily basis across the landscape.
that is very cool. Just not everyone understands completely what sustainable farming is. I have a very, beginner sort of process, or what happens in my mind is probably it's probably way more in depth. Though, can someone give a little bit of a talk about, what the agricultural practices are to farm in a way? Because I believe both Shakefork and Deepseeded, and most of the farmers involved in North Coast Growers Association are branded organic. And I'm not sure if all of them are, or what that,
Mhm. I'd
I,
say, yeah, most are probably using some kind of organic. More definitely not everybody is certified organic, but most adhere to organic practices as a baseline and perhaps even go above and beyond. Not exclusively, but I think most of us are drawn to this lifestyle and to this path because we truly believe in the integrity of growing food well and tending the land well. So it's just sort of the basics, even if we've chosen not to certify.
Feeding the crops by feeding the soil,
Hmm.
is definitely a foundation. And so avoiding synthetic inputs. So I, like Melanie, our farms are not certified organic, but we do use organic practices and then a whole host of other ecological practices, including, improving habitat through hedgerow plantings and insectary
Hmm.
plantings that support natural enemies, some beneficial insects. Of course, some of the foundational organic practices as well, crop rotation and cover cropping. Um, I do want to really just, applaud Melanie and Shakefork Farm because they, by integrating livestock and pasture into their produce operation too, they are also able to utilize the manure from the livestock, and rotate that back to fertilize the vegetable crops, which really, creates this lower input system. And that's something that I think a lot of ecological farms strive for, but they are doing a great job of it.
Thanks, Eddie. Yeah, d having animals and produce on the same farm creates some complications, and it's definitely very management intensive, but that is one of the goals is to close that loop and to have a fertility source that we cultivate on site. And that's why we say we're oxen powered in more ways than one, because there's the muscle that they provide, but they're definitely a big part of it is the manure.
Portia, you work closely with a lot of almost all of the farmers in Humboldt County because farmers markets are obviously kind of one of the best ways to be seen, I suppose. I don't know how much income or a percentage income that goes to, I'm not sure how much of a farmer's income comes from the farmers markets, but it's definitely a way to get themselves out there.
It's
Though,
significant. Yeah.
what
Hmm.
have you seen with the farmers that come to you said they're not, well, I wonder about it just brought up so many questions, which is
Yeah.
why aren't they certified organic? I know it's cost prohibitive in a lot of ways, but I'm wondering, is that why? Are they what is it, the good agricultural practice certification is another one that people can somehow get or something? I'll
There's
let
a
you
lot of
answer.
different certifications. Yeah, it's a great question and something that a lot of consumers, you see a lot of the labeling for organics and other types of certification labels in grocery stores, but folks kind of stop paying attention to that at the farmers market quite so much because it is a direct marketing opportunity where they're getting to know the farmer who's bringing the food directly. And in Humboldt County, we are unique in that all of the produce sold at our farmers markets, all of the agricultural products are grown in Humboldt County. So the folks who you're interacting with are the farmers who know the crops, know the soil, know the methods used on the farm. So that kind of eliminates some of the need for the marketing angle of organics because folks can have that one-on-one conversation and ask about the actual regenerative or sustainable or ecological practices that farmers are using. So some of our farmers have just found it not necessary to jump through those extra hoops in terms of cost and the reporting required. So even if they are following those practices on the farm, it saves them the extra time investment of the very careful and specific tracking and documentation that they have to provide to the certifier regularly. And then it does save the cost as well. So for some folks, that's the driving factor, and for others, it's you know the fact that just an organic certification label doesn't go far enough to prove that they are following all the best practices to meet their own personal goals on their land. So it is a label that provides some security to the consumer that they know that certain things are being prevented from use on the farm, but it doesn't answer all the questions when it comes to sustainability and regenerative ecological practices. So that's one reason, but it really has a lot to do with that face time that people get getting to know the farmer at the market. And that's what's so special about direct marketing opportunities, including community supported agriculture CSA models like Melanie and Eddie both have.
Which we'll get into CSA models as well as the new dockside market, what that means
Mm.
for the county, or at least Eureka, especially, right after this quick break. Welcome back to Thursday Night Talk. I'm your local host, Talvi Freed, here with Portia Bramble, Eddie Tanner, and Melanie Cunningham, all involved in the farming communities of Humboldt County. Even me as a consumer, I believe everybody in Humboldt is involved in one way or another, whether you eat food. And as Eddie said earlier, fresh food tastes good. So make sure to get the freshest food because there's there is no comparison between fresh like a fresh sun-grown tomato even versus that kind of watery, weird texture that comes from, a tomato shipped from halfway, who knows where it came from. Though I do want to get back to, we'll get to CSAs in a moment. I'm still stuck on the farming practices portion because it's interesting to me, especially with such a culture around here around just very anti-GMO, pro-natural everything, which natural can mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. It depends who you ask. If you ask a scientist, they're going to tell you something, or if you ask a chemist, they're going to tell you something very different than a biologist, perhaps. Um, Maybe a bad example, but you know what I mean.
Hmm.
And how does everybody feel about GMOs and naturally selective seeds, and where do these seeds come from? Because I can't imagine every single crop being grown is going to be something that's native to Humboldt County.
That's a
No,
great
that's
question.
true.
We could start with the GMO question. Humboldt County has a ban on the commercial growing of GMO products, but our organization, North Coast Growers Association, and our farmers markets kind of preceded that countywide ban with an internal policy that prohibits the use of GMO products by any of our vendors. So that is a long-standing policy that our membership got together and decided upon internally. We really like to make decisions for the markets collectively amongst the whole membership, and that was one that we received pretty high consensus in support of prohibiting GMOs. But yeah, I'd love to hear from Melanie and Eddie about the source of seeds. A lot of our farmers do some really impressive seed saving themselves
Hmm.
internally. It's really important to, saving the right varieties that are adapted to the local microclimates that we have here, but also for security to ensure access. During COVID, the ability to access seed was significantly impaired due to so many people turning to backyard gardening and supply disruptions globally. So that
Hmm.
forced people to look internally. But yeah, I'm curious, Melanie and Eddie, what do you find in terms of security for the quality of seeds that you access?
Yeah, it's a great question because we don't talk about seeds enough, and they're so essential to a sustainable food system. I just heard from my husband, we were talking about the fact that they're releasing a GMO lettuce, apparently, that's going to be resistant to mold or something crazy. And I mean, it's a crazy world out there. I think it's really important. I think farmers, it's a lot to navigate. It's a very, like seed cultivation is a very complex issue. So it's important to, I really respect the farmers that do a lot of their own seed saving, and I think that works for some people. It can be very complicated on a farm as diverse as those of us who are running CSAs to actually, when you're growing so many different crops, to also manage a seed crop, which is in the ground longer and takes up space and has all of its requirements. So we always try to do a couple every year just for fun and for knowledge and um, food security, but we also try to support very uh, seed companies that we really trust their values and who share our values. Companies like High Mowing Organic Seeds or Adaptive Seeds in Oregon, or, there's a lot of good choices out there. People doing good work.
Yeah, likewise. I am purchasing almost all of my seed from off the farm. Although we do have some great seed savers in our community who have, varieties that they've been maintaining for many years and developing some new varieties as well. So Humboldt County does have a history of that and some great seed saving happening. Um, and seed saving, yeah, can be a great tool for food security and for adapting varieties to your site so that they perform better and require less inputs. Um, so yeah, I'm in Melanie's camp though. It's complicated when you have a very diversified farm and are kind of intensively utilizing small acreage. Um, but but yeah, I am also, we don't use any GMO seed, but I am GMO agnostic, I would say personally. I think there is, so much of GMO to this point has been just so industry driven by commercial agriculture and the desire to build in herbicide resistance. That's what most GMO seeds are now, are bred to be able to grow in combination with herbicides on a large scale. And those are farming practices that we don't embrace. So I definitely have a lot of skepticism around it, but I try to keep an open mind about possibilities for the future, and I think we nothing stays the same, and some of our scientific advances have gotten us to good places. So trying to keep an open mind, but yeah.
I
Yeah,
appreciate.
definitely has a place, maybe. I mean, it's definitely not something that a small scale market gardener or CSA farmer is probably ever going to buy have a reason to buy a GMO seed. We're looking for flavor and other traits that aren't going to be highlighted and elevated in seed growing for GMO crops. So we're just sort of on a different track of the kinds of seeds and varieties and things that we're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point, Melanie. I think that's one of the greatest things about being a farm that markets directly to the people who are eating the food, is that we do have these opportunities to choose varieties that don't need to hold up to shipping and storage, that
Hmm.
are bred for their flavor or their cool aesthetic, or really one of the best things is that they can be, picked at full ripeness. So we are looking for different traits in varieties. And so yeah, I think it's great that there is still, you know, a great range of crop genetics, and I think it is important yeah, that we all as a society maintain and preserve
Hmm.
that.
There is an interesting array of things that come in a farm share, and I didn't notice how very privileged we are in Humboldt. I got sent out to work in Kansas some years ago, and my friend was picking up the farm share and would take photos of it while I was working out in Kansas, of all places. Would you think of that as also another sort of farm country? And I was showing my coworkers out there, and they were like, "Purple carrots? They come in purple? What are these vegetables?" And I was like, "They're amazing that we do get that variety. I've noticed that they're really pretty and they taste good. The flavor profiles are just amazing. Though I do want to ask, what's the oddest item that you've given people where they're just like, how do I even use this? Because I've had to Google multiple times during farm shares where I'm just like, what do I do with this?
I
Well,
feel like that conversation. Yeah. For us, I think the one that stands out to me is sunchokes, Jerusalem artichokes. They're a great crop. They grow really well here. They're really prolific. They're like a low glycemic starch source, so they can be, dietarily advantageous. But but it was one of those that the customers were like, "What do I do with this?" Even when we have recipes and sent it out, a lot of feedback like, "That's just, we didn't end up using that." I think my experience with running a CSA, that it has been a little bit of give and take there, where it's
Mhm.
fun to add in some new things, and try to keep it interesting. But I feel like most of my job is to provide people with the staples. Mostly have a steady supply of the things that I know people are going to want week after week. Lettuce, carrots, broccoli, beans or peas, tomatoes,
Mhm.
fruit of any kind.
Hmm.
So
Agreed. Yeah. You don't want to be pushing the weird stuff too much, but you want to have just enough to keep it kind of fun and interesting. And we usually once in a season we'll throw some purslane into a share. It goes great in a cucumber salad, and it's kind of a superfood, even though it is a weed. And we definitely have made a few fans of purslane out of our members, but it's definitely something that we have to provide a lot of support. A recipe, links to other resources online. We really have to talk it up, and so that takes a lot of education and commitment. And I like to do that part of my job, but I also like to provide vegetables that people are familiar with as well.
which leads into the question everybody's listening, like, what, that purslane, sunchokes? Like, how do I get these? And we never actually, or I never asked the question, we never answered the question, what is a CSA? So what's a CSA?
Well, I'll jump in. It does mean different things. There are kind of many types of businesses that are operating as CSAs, but I guess some of the kind of foundational principles is that there is a direct connection between the consumer, between the household, and a farm or a small group of farms. Um, and ideally a commitment, right? A commitment to support those operations for a duration, ideally for a whole season. So there is a lot of flexibility, in the modern era, you can just kind of sign up online for a box delivered to your door this week and then not get it next week. And sometimes you can choose what you want in your box. Um, so I think the CSA that I operate is kind of really just is foundational. It's sort of that core idea of CSA where there's one farm growing a bunch of crops, and what the farm has to offer that week is what people take home. Um, and so the model that I run is not one that offers very much choice, but it does, keep things diverse and interesting and flavorful. And so people kind of come and get what there is that week and then figure out what to do with it. So that's the CSA version that we use, although there are, quite a lot of more sort of flexible, choice-driven models.
Hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of customers demand more choice, but up here in Humboldt County, most of us still ascribe to more of a traditional model. And like Eddie also offers at Deepseeded an experience. So folks get to come to the farm and pick up at the farm and walk through the flowers and get transformed by that connection to the place and that peaceful energy and all the beauty of seeing all the crops growing. So that's something that we at our farm, being a little bit more remote in Carlotta, a little bit further out, we did try to do on-farm pickup only in the beginning years. But once we wanted to grow past about 60 members, we realized we had to pack boxes and deliver them to pickup sites that were more convenient to folks. So now at 145 members, we pack weekly boxes on Tuesdays and Fridays and send them to 7 different pickup sites as far south as Redway and as far north as North Arcata. And the farm still remains a pickup site, but it's actually just probably just 20% of our members actually come to the farm. So I do think that's something really special about farms like Redwood Roots Farm and Deep Seeded, and probably Green Spiral and a few others in the area where there is on-farm pickup. But that doesn't work for everybody. And so we have like a work site drop at Providence Hospital. So nurses and staff can pick up on their lunch breaks, and it's very convenient and trying to meet people where they are. I think that's sort of the most important thing about our local food community is that there's a lot of people and a lot of farms, and we just need to meet people where they are, and that's a lot of different places. So some people are totally stoked to go out to a farm, and some people would rather just pick up real quick on their way home.
And I think, yes, they're picking up a box, they're not coming right to your farm, but they know that everything is grown at your farm and coming from your farm, and
Hmm.
they have this relationship with you and your practices,
Hmm.
um, and they're getting everything really fresh and flavorful. So I think, there are many ways that CSA works, but but at its core, it's about supporting local farms and getting really fresh seasonal produce to eat.
Yeah. And I would say at its core, it's about relationship and deepening your connection to a community of people around based on a piece of land and the hands and the people and the animals that tend that piece of land. And it's also like for our kinds of CSAs where you do commit to a season, you get this whole journey through the season. You start early with all the spring crops, and then those sort of disappear as you get into the cucumbers and the heat-loving crops, and then that eventually becomes sweet corn and, the more end of the season fall crops, winter squash, and it's just this whole journey that you get to enjoy and really begin to live seasonality in your own life. And I think that's cool for people too.
I think that's so well said, Melanie. And one fun thing about Eddie's farm is that during the winter, folks can sign up for a you pick winter share. So they actually get to go out and harvest in the fields, which is a really fun, sometimes muddy, messy experience. And I just see so many people out there with their children really, learning about that like winter season and how much abundance there is out there,
Mhm.
but also the hard work that goes into, finding the right and still, still high quality products are out there and searching through the leaves and cutting it yourself and washing it yourself. So that's a beautiful experience too. And then through North Coast Growers Association, we offer the Harvest Box, which is that home delivery program. And that arose during COVID when folks were looking for a contact free way of buying from our local farmers. But it has really evolved to meet the niche of some of our smaller producers who don't have quite enough production to have their own CSA or even enough production to do any kind of wholesale opportunity. So it gives people a little foot in the door to selling through our food hub, harvest hub, through selling for a harvest box. And that way we're able to basically buy like many different types of varieties from a bunch of different farmers, and smaller quantities are reasonable, and then we pack and deliver those boxes to folks' homes, and that's been a really successful program and reached a milestone of 150 home deliveries this last week. So it's a growing and great program for the convenience of folks who can't make it out to the farm or can't commit to the full season, but also for those growers who are just, up and coming and learning how to increase their production. So we're trying to meet those niches for those farmers.
So you mentioned the Harvest Hub. Can you explain a little more what that is?
Yeah, Harvest Hub is a food hub. So the model is that we are buying from our local producers and then we are marketing that produce to different institutional buyers, mainly to schools and also to senior centers. We also sell to Food for People and a few restaurants, but schools are one of our biggest buyers. And the concept is really growing across the state and nationwide. And they have, yeah, food hubs have really begun to be quite a popular way for producers to cut down on the number of deliveries they have to make and the number of contracts that they have to manage. So they have one buyer, which is us, North Coast Growers, and we manage all of the sales and all of the contracts with those buyers. So we have one drop off point where the producers come and deliver their produce. We have cold storage and freezers on site. And then we have delivery vehicles where we can deliver, and a few of our buyers pick up on site as well. So having that one stop shop has just really saved a lot of time and energy and juggling different contracts for the producer as well as the buyer.
Sounds like something that a lot goes into. I do just want to, we've got a break coming up in just a moment that we were talking about seeds earlier, and I totally spaced on the plant and seed exchange, which for those curious, every year there's this event that happens that is a bunch of plants and seeds, and you can just go pick them up. When I first moved out here, I went and got a lot of seeds, and the only thing I managed to grow that was edible was zucchini. As many will find in Humboldt, if you plant it in the ground, you're going to get a lot of it. Though it's a fun experience, and I've noticed this theme of, especially with pick your own or having a little, just enough variety to keep it interesting. There's this educational component of having a farm share or a CSA. It would have blown my mind when I was a kid. Like, wow, what is this? Just absolute magic. It's still kind of magical to me as an adult, being like, look at this weird looking thing that I'm about to eat. So pretty great. We are going to take a break. When we come back, we'll be talking some more with Eddie Tanner from Deepseeded Farms, Melanie Cunningham from Shakefork Community Farms, and Portia Bramble, the executive director of the North Coast Growers Association. Be right back with Thursday Night. I hope everyone enjoyed that quick dance break. We're back on Thursday Night Talk. I'm your local host, Talvi Freed, here with Portia Bramble, Eddie Tanner, and Melanie Cunningham, all involved in the local farmers community, North Coast Growers Community Association. It's all a community here. And we
It
discussed
is.
a bit, it is very much a community. We discussed quite a bit. If you didn't catch it or are just tuning in, and are like, what did I miss? Because you've missed some great conversations out here. Then find us online, KZZHLP or accesshumboldt.net. And if you are tuning in and have listened and are like, gosh, I just really, really, really want to ask some questions, you've got about 10 minutes to ask, but send those questions to 707 498 4146. Again, 707 498 4146. So we've talked about a lot, but we have some new developments in Humboldt County, particularly in Eureka, and that is the dockside market, which I think has been a dream for a long, long time. People have been talking about it happening, having fresh fresh fish, supposedly fresh seafood. I'm not exactly sure because I haven't been able to make it because I seem to work every day that it happens. Though, Portia, do you want to go into what is going on with this dockside market? What is it?
Yeah, absolutely. The Fisherman's Dockside Market in Eureka has been a dream of the community and the local fishing community for decades in the making. You know, part of the design of the beautiful tiled Madaket Plaza at the foot of C Street, where you can find Jack's Seafood Restaurant and also the Madaket Boat Dock launch. The design for that space was to include some sort of outdoor market. And we have lots of fabulous seasonal events that take place down there on the waterfront, but we don't have any type of food related market. So the space is perfectly ready to host a fisher's market, and we had to go through several years of planning phase to design the best approach to an event and also to the infrastructure and supplies needed to actually fillet fish on site. So that took several years of planning and working really closely with, Harbor District as well as the various fishermen's associations and a lot of leadership from our North Coast Growers Association Harvest Hub Director Megan Kenny, along with Ashley Seafood. Ashley Vellis is a fisherman's wife who runs Ashley Seafood and has employed different business models to support the fishing community over the last many years. And the launch of the Dockside Market happened just last month, and the market is running every other week. And we have over a dozen local fishing vessels and fishermen that are committed to attending the season and selling their fresh catch right there on Humboldt Bay. And the innovations include, the fish filleting station. So folks can come out, pick their whole fish, and then have it broken down for them professionally. We ask people to bring their own containers and ice, so coolers or buckets and ice to keep your fish fresh. But the hard work of figuring out exactly how to fillet it from the whole fish down to the edible portions is done for you professionally right there. So it's really exciting to see the whole product and get to pick and choose and also come home with something that's ready to be cooked for dinner.
That sounds amazing. And someone's going to tell my boss to let me just go down there. Just give
Yeah,
me a break so I can go get some fish filleted.
we're running every other Saturday from 9 until we sell out, which depends on the weather and the fish that are flowing in the oceans that day. But yeah, show up early at 9 a.m. There's also some prepared fish food related products to buy and eat, and you can enjoy the downtown businesses and community and the sites down there.
So there is a very seasonal component to the farming community and to the agricultural community as a whole. And I know there's some interesting things happening with Friday night market that goes until September in Eureka and then is moving to Arcata for 3 out of 4 weeks of was it October, I believe. And then, so I'm kind of curious about that because it's like, okay, you have Friday night market and then Saturday morning farmers market, which is a lot of awesomeness, but that means both nighttime people and daytime people finally have a chance to go out there. Though what happens later in the season And feel free to comment on the Friday night market boarding stuffs because there's I feel like there's 1,000 farmers markets. But Humboldt County is a very huge county, so it's got to be a
That's
lot for
a
farmers to go from one spot to the other every day. But I'm curious how the logistics of that even works for a farmer.
great question. So, North Coast Growers Association operates 9 certified farmers markets, and that includes partnership with Humboldt Made for the Eureka Friday Night Market. There are also several other fantastic community-based markets that happen. The certified farmers market is a unique structure that's certified by the county agriculture department to ensure that we're providing products grown by the local farmer. You are correct that the Humboldt Made and Arcata Chamber are partnering on a new endeavor, which is to have events take place on the Arcata Plaza on Friday nights, September 5th, 12th, and 26th from 5 to 8 p.m. So the Eureka Friday Night Market will run through August. And that decision is made by the Eureka community, downtown businesses, and Eureka Main Street, City of Eureka, as well as Humboldt Made. So the idea was to, yeah, carry that forward, bring a little love on Friday evenings to Arcata. It's a brand new concept, and we are not the organizers of this new endeavor on Friday evenings. I don't anticipate a lot of our farmers will attend that event. But that could be a potential. We're pretty happy with our Saturday market vibe, and attendance has always been really fabulous. It really is a cornerstone and a significant economic boost for our farmers. So I do think the Arcata community has wanted more evening activities, and I'm excited to see the chamber and Humboldt Made try to fill that niche of just something really fun to do to bring some activity, social, and commerce to Arcata on a Friday evening. But it's brand new, so let's see how it goes.
Yeah, time will tell. I do wonder with the seasons changing, what's going to happen in autumn and winter on the farms.
Yeah.
Great
And
question.
well, not most of us, but many of us, some of us, Eddie and I, we grow year round. People need to eat year round. We need an income year round. And even though summer is more intense, we've kind of structured our farm to spread out the workflow a little bit. So, there's cash flow throughout all the different seasons, and we can keep a team of a staff employed throughout the year because I think that's really important as well as maintaining your core farm crew and giving them work, meaningful work throughout the whole season. So now that Arcata Market goes year round, it's been probably over a decade. Um, we have opportunities for marketing our products year round and selling to the hub. And Eddie runs a really long CSA season. Ours ends in October, but we do on-farm like pop-up markets around the holidays. When we sell Thanksgiving turkeys in November, folks pick up potatoes and carrots and celery and all the fixings that go along with their turkeys. So I think it's important to help people. People want to celebrate food around the end of the harvest season. So, you know, the pumpkin patches, the Thanksgiving holiday, the Christmas holiday. And so it's important for us as farmers to meet them where they're at and try to provide what is needed and wanted. And it helps us too, because, winter is long and cold and wet, and there's not a lot happening January through March and not a lot growing. So it's important to kind of end the season on a strong note.
It's actually one thing I would add to that. We really do have a seasonal cycle of production. We have some crops that we're harvesting throughout the year, but the volume does
Hmm.
decline late winter and early spring months, especially. Um, but I think that's an opportunity, and that's something that my farm is leaning into with more high tunnel greenhouse type structures for season extension. And I think that's going to be. I just think there's a lot of opportunity there, especially with the growth of the harvest. We have institutional buyers like schools, hospitals, perhaps, that people that want produce and want local produce throughout the year. And I do think there's room for us to do more of that. So
Hmm.
so yeah, even though we have some really established markets, the farmers market, awesome, but also a little saturated for new producers just trying to figure out how they'll start a farm business. So it makes me really encouraged the work that the North Coast Growers Association has been doing with their Harvest Hub, making these connections, making it easier for institutional buyers to support local produce, to purchase from local farms throughout the year. But I think also in this off season, we can build that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I know we have so much more we can talk about. We really do. I always feel like the show ends too early. We've got 10 minutes left, and I want to give each of you a couple minutes to just whatever you want listeners or people watching on our YouTube channel or on Access Humboldt. We're actually going to be on TV. Yay. That's cool. My mom's proud. Uh, but have a few minutes to just talk to anybody listening and tell them whatever closing thoughts you'd like to have. Let's go in the same order I started with. Let's start with Eddie.
Well, I guess I would just like to say that I'm really happy to be able to interact with this group of people. The three of us have known each other and worked together and continue to collaborate. It's been a long time and we have great partnerships. And I think, aside from our farm businesses, all of us are just believers in a local food economy and supporting local farming and small business. And we all do that in various ways. And we actually do a lot of it together through the projects that the North Coast Growers Association has been stewarding and you know having these grant funded activities that support continued education for our producer community, help local producers with new economic opportunities, and training for beginning farmers that want to start. So aside from their marketing activities, there's this whole big educational component that the North Coast Growers Association does that I'm happy to be a part of, and I think that it would be, yeah, that I would like the community to know and be aware of, and also just give them a plug as a great nonprofit organization that could really benefit from local philanthropy, that there's really opportunities to support our local food economy through the really egalitarian and farmer driven work that North Coast Growers Association does. So yeah, I'll just end with a plug for Portia and NCGA.
Fantastic. Melanie?
That's awesome. Thank you, Eddie. Yes, I'll also serve as the board president for the NCGA, so I've been pretty active for the last 8 years or so. And Eddie has as well, even though he's not serving on the board, he's involved in so many of our projects and educational opportunities. Um, I guess I would just say, let's see, there's so many things. If you're out there and you have any interest in, well, there's always joining CSAs, but there's also like becoming a farm crew member. I think the more you can support the farm community by signing up for a CSA, giving us your food dollars and letting us feed you, but you can also get a job and deepen your relationship in that way. Build your skills, build your agricultural literacy. You can be any age. We have crew members as young as 21 and as old as 50. And it's such a neat opportunity to be outside, to do something productive, to give back to a community, to grow your skill set, to get in shape, to be healthier, to eat well, to grow a network of friends, like-minded folks. So I would encourage anyone listening that is interested in this conversation and getting more involved to also think about networking with the farm community and maybe getting their hands dirty on the back end of things.
Very cool. All right. Portia.
Yeah, I love that. And thank you, Eddie, for the props to what NCGA has been working on. I'll take the opportunity to say that, yeah, if folks are interested in getting involved in any way, if you're thinking of, becoming a backyard kind of hobby farmer or someday being a farmer yourself, if you are looking for one of those farm work jobs that Melanie is mentioning, which are fantastic opportunities throughout the county, contact us, because we kind of facilitate those communications between our farming community and the public and our customers. So we try to encourage folks to just access local food in any way that works for them, whether that's, shopping at the farmers market, um, joining a CSA, just getting a harvest box delivery when it's convenient for you, and also to support our efforts in any way that you can. But I think most importantly, it takes a huge amount of passion and dedication to do the work that our farmers do and the work of our large staff team at NCGA. We have up to 25 employees when we're at our maximum, including our seasonal farmers market staff, as well as our admin team in the office and all the different folks that make this work happen. It's a big team of very passionate and dedicated people who put a lot of time and thought and energy into planning for all of this work. And that's exactly the way our farmers operate. We learn from their dedication and hard work every day how to dedicate ourselves to support their work. So it is a really beautiful community to be a part of, and to see generations come up after each other, and to see some of the farm kids who we knew as babies now growing up into adults. It's been a fantastic journey to be a part of this community. So we just appreciate our customers and the fact that Humboldt County is incredibly unique in the dedication and support for local agriculture, and we're unique in our amazing diversity of microclimates and capacity to grow an abundance of so many different products.
Fantastic. One more question. How do people find out, or how do people sign up? Is there a website people can go to? How do people go and get their produce from y'all?
I think we all have websites. NCGA has a website. You can probably sign up for farm harvest boxes online, shakeforkcommunityfarm.com. You can join our CSA online. We start selling shares for 2026 in the end of October of this year. So we're usually mostly sold out by March or so, and Eddie probably has signups online as well.
Putting into that, if you're interested in joining one of our great local CSAs, email sooner than later. A lot of us do sell to capacity. So yeah, please get your name on one of our wait lists. And we'd love to be growing food for you.
Yeah, and you'll find a directory of all of our local farmers on the North Coast Growers Association.org website, along with all of the farmers market listings.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to Executive Director of the North Coast Growers Association, Portia Bramble, Eddie Tanner, Deepseeded from Deepseeded Farm, and Melanie Cunnigham from Shakefork Community Farms. If you haven't tried their vegetables, I guess, they're out there. And as Eddie said, I want that on a t-shirt. The fresh food tastes good. Like that's if you don't have a catchphrase, that's your catchphrase now, because that's that's kind of the point. Like, yes, it's good for your health. It's great for all of that, but it's really it tastes good and it makes you feel good, and you're supporting.
Yeah, that really was transformative for me as a young adult. I grew up in a household that did cook a lot of its own meals and tried to incorporate local, fresh produce, but it wasn't always the freshest, honestly. A lot of it was kind of supermarket produce, a lot of unripe fruit, a lot of stale carrots. And so it really was transformational for me to start eating freshly dug and freshly harvested produce. And I totally see that when I think all of us have also been involved in farm education, bringing K through, well, really all ages of school groups out to our farms for experiential opportunities, and that on-farm education, being able to taste some of those freshly dug carrots, other produce like that, it really does stimulate new synapses in the brain and hopefully make those kind of lifelong connections. People are more excited to eat healthily and also have more literacy and awareness around agriculture, because there are quite a lot of both environmental and social issues and challenges relating to agriculture.
Thank you so much, Eddie and Portia and Melanie. That's about all the time we have today. Thank you to the panel for coming on the show and talking with the community. We'll be back next week with another Thursday Night Talk. If you have topics, suggestions, or commentary about the show, please email us at kzzh@accesshumboldt.net. Reminder, the show will replay Friday evening at 8 p.m. on KZZH LP 96.7 FM. You can also watch the show on Access Humboldt's YouTube channel, as well as on our cable TV channels. Just see the Access Humboldt sign. Eventually, you'll see my face. And everyone's face is here. So thanks so much. I'm your local host, Talvi Freed, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.